that song. Ooh, hello, everybody. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Joy Reid Show. I missed that song, and now I hear it. I just feel complete. Feel complete. Big up to everybody that's in the chats. If you are on Twitch, if you missed us, you Twitchies on Twitch, you little adorable Twitchy poos. All those listening on audio podcast platforms. If you're on the Stack, hello, Substackers. Hello, Facebookers. Hello, YouTubies. Hello to the lemon heads, the lemon readers, as we love to call them, the cousins from Read This, Read That. Wherever you're coming from, we're just excited that you're here. Many, many things. I cannot go any further without issuing just endless thanks to our dear friend Wajahat Ali, the Waj, for filling in last week. Can we get a round of applause Jason, for the Waj? For giving Jason and me a chance to, do a bit of work. It was like fun travel, work travels, a little bit of both. We were at NABJ. Big ups to the new leadership of NABJ, Aaron Haynes. Also, we were in Martha's Vineyard. Good times were had, but also we were working. We're working.
We supposed to have been taking a couple of days off. We did take some days off, but mostly we did some work. But happy Monday, fam. We're back.
We're back. The
Thank
conductor.
Thank you, Waj and DJ and
yes,
Netta
DJ
Wanj
is what they're calling her. They're calling her DJ Wanj. DJ Wanji was in the house on the Wheels of Steel. Winsome Reed, kicking it, doing it big. Niva, always hooking it up, making it fabulous. Ron, Adrienne. Well, Adrienne was kind of with us. She was with us part of the time. She was partly back and forth, but just big ups to everybody on the team. Everybody worked so hard. So you have a fantastic team when the two of us can like leave the roost and everything still keeps flowing. So big ups to Ron and Niva, Wanji, DJ Wanji. We're gonna have to start calling her DJ Wanji. Winnie, Miles, who also did some work in the chat, making sure you guys are all being nice to each other in the chat. So just everybody, the whole team, we love you guys. So thank you for welcoming us back. We missed you guys. We did pop in and look a little. We didn't not watch. To be honest, we're supposed to be just chilling, but we did watch some of the shows. Really loved the Angie Nixon interview that Waj did. And by the way, that and the Ali Velshi interviews were the only interviews worth watching. A lot of the interviews with Representative Angie Nixon, who's running for U.S. Senate in Florida, were hot trash. I'm just being honest. Just as a media, a fellow member of the media, it was not good. By the way, I'm going to have a proper wind down on my side of the travels tomorrow at 3 p.m. on Read This, Read That, with my sore sister, cousin, friend, Jackie Reed. So definitely tune in for that. And then later on in this show, we're going to get the tea, the inside scoopola on Officer Tatum, the anti-black ex-cop who's made it his mission to protect the white Nolan Wells friends from any questions whatsoever about their knowledge or lack thereof about what happened to the teenager whose 19th birthday, by the way, we were part of the commemoration of on Martha's Vineyard, as his family did the same in Mississippi and advocates did all over the country. It was a sad moment, I think, all around the country. He literally would have turned 19 on August 19th. So that was a thing that we all did. So we're going to talk about that later in the show. We also have our good friend LaTosha Brown will be here at the end of the show to talk about something joyful. We love to have a little bit of something joyful. Of course, we have a really good moment of joy tonight. It's good news for a change. So that's just your tease for the night. Let me thank one of our wonderful sponsors. The Joy Reid Show is brought to us by books and, of course, our friends at bookshop.org. Now, would you be surprised to learn that we are living in actually a resurgence of independent bookstores? More than 1,000 new bookstores have opened in just the last 5 years. Independent bookstores are like really great. I love an independent bookstore because not only do they sell books, they also take care of the community. They pour back into the community. They create safe spaces that foster culture, curiosity, and a love of reading. In fact, Angie Nixon is one of the independent booksellers. She has an independent bookstore. It's one of the things that she does while she's doing her advocacy in Florida. Well, when you purchase from bookshop.org, not only are you getting great books to read, you are supporting more than 3,000 local independent bookstores so that they can continue to do their essential work. So if you love reading, if you're a fiction reader, I am reading fiction for Read This, Read That. It's where I get a chance to read fiction because normally I'm reading about like the 30s and the Nazi era, but I'm reading fiction for Read This, Read That. And bookshop.org is a great place to get yourself a fiction book, a nonfiction book, whatever you love to read, get a comic, whatever you love, you can get it. And you can support the bookstores you love when you're doing it. Just use the code JOY to get 10% off your next order at bookshop.org. That is 10% off at bookshop.org with the code JOY. All right, so we've been off for quite a long time. And one of the things that I have been paying attention to, even as we've been traveling around, is the ways in which infrastructure, remember Infrastructure Week, Jason? Do you remember Infrastructure Week when Trump was president the first time? It was
it was every week.
Like every week. But what happened was, it's weird, like whenever a Republican is president, the infrastructure seems to go to shit. Like, I don't know what happens, but, George W. Bush is president, and then the levees fail. And it's like a man-made disaster that's written off like it's a natural disaster, but it's actually really man-made. Well, Donald Trump, even after $1.7 trillion of your tax money was spent by Joe Biden, really not by Biden himself, but by a handful of all-white senators, Democrat and Republican, bipartisan little cooperation. They got together in a room and split $1.7 trillion in money to do big infrastructure, the big infrastructure bill. This was the bill that the squad was bullied about not supporting because it didn't have the good stuff for women and children and poor people in it, and the stuff about free preschool. All that was left out. All the Mamdani-like stuff was cast aside, and they were ordered, you have to support this bill because it's big infrastructure. Most of the big infrastructure in the Biden era, which was one of his biggest accomplishments, it was like an Eisenhower level accomplishment. Most of that was spent in red states. Red states actually got disproportionately more. Blue states got disproportionately less. But all of that big highway and bridge, that infrastructure was supposed to be fixed. But if you notice that since then, a whole bridge has collapsed in Baltimore. Remember that? So where's the big infrastructure? Where was that spending? Because it seems like the spending was like warped against brown and black people and people in blue states, right? But red states got more. But in addition to the seeming, I don't know what's happened to the big infrastructure money with Trump and Republicans now in charge. That was passed by Democrats. I don't know where that money has gone now. Remember, no Republicans voted for the big infrastructure. None of them voted for it. Some of them tried to take credit for it after, when they saw the bridges and stuff getting and the roads getting fixed, but they didn't want it. But that money passed. That money exists. It's out there in the world, but you wouldn't know it from the fact that the current regime seems to be letting the country physically fall apart, even while the president of the United States is physically destroying the country, like particularly in Washington, D.C., like defacing the country, destroying parts of the White House, destroying parts of the Capitol. But then he's also reaching outside the country and physically destroying their infrastructure too. There is a sort of deliberate campaign of destruction that is directed outside of our borders to our neighbors to try to exert control over them. Let me let you look at what's happening right now in our neighbor, Cuba. Take a look.
As night falls, Havana goes dark. This has become the new reality for Cubans across the country. While people try to make the best of the situation, everyone is impacted as the electrical grid buckles under a fuel shortage induced from abroad. Back in January, President Trump imposed an illegal fuel blockade, threatening sanctions against any country or shipping company supplying petroleum to Cuba.
We're hearing from Cubans about how they've been affected by the blackouts. What began months ago as power cuts lasting a few hours now continues for most of the day, every day.
I start work at 7 a.m. and finish at 7 p.m. By the time I get home, there's no power.
This street vendor gets up in the middle of the night to do her household chores.
When the electricity comes on at 2, at 3 in the morning, that's when I start doing laundry, and I also do my cooking during the middle of the night when the power comes on. Everything is hard now.
Some apartment buildings have their own solar panel generators. In other areas, residents spend time outdoors to escape the indoor heat.
We go 30 or even more hours without electricity. In my case, I was able to buy a small generator, and it helps me when it comes to cooking meals. And since I use cylinder gas, there's no gas either. I have a 5-year-old, and it's really hard because they don't understand that there's no electricity, that sometimes there's no way to cook. You do things like give him milk because it's easier to prepare since it's powdered milk. But it's very difficult, for example, to make something as simple as Jell-O because you have no way to make it set or store it since there's no refrigeration.
This couple is here visiting family from Ciego de Avila in central Cuba. Cuba, which reaches nearly 40 degrees Celsius with no electricity to run an air conditioner or a fan.
You have no electricity to cook, but you also don't have water supply, and you don't have a way to sleep to be able to face the next day. And it's really hard for adults too, as we adults see it, to be able to support the children, people who have an elderly person at home, a bedridden person. Everything is affected. The situation we've had to live through, starting from the lack of fuel, is really complex.
They're using things like power banks and rechargeable lamps and fans. However, the resumption of the country's fuel supply is what would most alleviate families.
If there were a fuel supply, it would change things a bit, because now they've installed solar panels, but it's not enough. The demand is greater than the panel's capacity to generate power. I think if fuel came in, things could improve. Fuel for the state, for example, for the state thermoelectric plants.
I think lifting the blockade would be a good step, because it's really something that affects us a lot. And also, from an internal point of view, there are solutions, measures, and things that could be done from here that would also help. But as a starting point, I think the blockade greatly affects the situation we have in the country today.
In the face of the economic siege that has lasted decades, Cuba displays remarkable resilience while crafting alternatives to overcome Washington's blockade. Camila Escalante, Press TV, Havana.
So let me tell you something interesting about that report. You know what Press TV is? Press TV is an Iranian state-owned media company. So it's interesting, and I'm sorry if there was an echo. You guys were saying you were hearing echo. I don't know if you guys can hear it still, but it should seem okay now. I think. Internally, they're saying that it's fine. But yeah, Press TV is actually an Iranian media company, an Iranian news company. It's like their BBC. Isn't it interesting that with all that's going on in Iran, where the U.S. and Israel are bombing the hell out of their cities and oil infrastructure and killing children while at school, they're doing a story like that. They broadcast in French and in English. They're kind of like Al Jazeera. But the fact that they're focusing on that is interesting, right? Because there seems to be sort of a global South solidarity, because the thing that's being done to Cuba is also being done to Iran. We're also doing sort of embargoes and sanctioning Iran. You can't do business with them except unless you're Dick Cheney, apparently. Dick Cheney could do it, because there are people 100% doing, remember Iran-Contra? Like, conservatives could do business with Iran, even during, anyway, but I've gone off topic. But the bottom line being that is what we're doing to Cuba. We are deliberately starving them, making it deliberately impossible to have a normal life in Cuba. Why? Because the Trump regime wants to force the current Cuban regime out so that they can control the resources of Cuba and extend their own influence into Central America and South America and into the Caribbean and control the resources there. It's the same reason we keep destabilizing Haiti. We want control of Haiti. If Haiti would bend the knee, we would stop harming them, but we won't stop until they bend the knee. Same thing with Cuba. Marco Rubio has made it his own personal mission to overthrow the regime in Cuba and take over Cuba. Cuba has resources, we want them. And we want them to bend the knee and be under our control. And the current regime is just more explicit about it. But this has been U.S. policy since the Bay of Pigs, since the 1960s. But that's why that's what's happening, right? It's the same reason that your tax dollars are propping up the Argentinian beef industry at the expense of the U.S. beef industry. We're going to have our favorite farmer on later in the week to talk about that. We're literally harming our own beef industry to prop up Argentina's, because Argentina has bent the knee. The regime there is an offshoot of the Trump regime. And so since they are friendly to Trump and the Trump regime and are willing to allow their resources to be manipulated by the Americans, right, to the point of Peter Thiel actually moving there and moving his family there so that he can now have an off U.S. residence and avoid taxes, they're like the new Florida. And so they get to have a beef industry and ours gets to die. It's all one story. I say this all the time. This feudalist, this techno-feudalist Epstein regime, because Epstein was a techno-feudalist, they want to have a new feudalism or return the country back roughly to the status that it was when it was founded, where you have a small number of elite who are the only people allowed to go to college. That's their new thing. The lady in charge of the Department of Education says, not everybody needs to go to college. We'll start from elementary school, training children to be in trades, to replace all the immigrants they've thrown out of the country. They just go to trades, and only white elite men go to college. and then everything's fixed. Everyone else becomes a plantation worker. So they don't care about that, right? They don't care if you have infrastructure. They don't care if you have water. They don't care if you live in the dark. It doesn't matter because everyone but them are just chattel. And so you don't need to have water. Years ago, I interviewed a guy named Grover Norquist. His name is really Grover, but he's not the fun Grover. I like Grover at the one on Sesame Street. His name is Grover Norquist. And Grover Norquist is a founder of he's an anti-tax advocate for the Americans for Tax Reform, I think is his organization. Way back when I was working at Radio 1, I interviewed him. And he wants zero taxation. He's one of these people who wants zero taxation on the wealthy. He believes that all government, and the only government that should exist is the military, and that everything else should be returned to local and the states or to private enterprise. And that means everything. He means the post office should be privatized, the police, the fire, you should pay a fee to get the police department and the fire department. And if you didn't pay the fee and your house is burning, I asked him, if you didn't pay the fee, if it's privatized and your house is burning down, should they put out the fire in your home? And he said, no, it should be privatized, where you have to pay for the fire department, pay for private police. Rich people would just live behind armed security. You know what country that's like, right? That's Haiti, where the very rich live behind armed security and they have literal private militias that have now become Haiti's criminal gangs. I'm digressing again. But this is the world that these people want. These Epstein class Project 2025 people, they don't mind living in a world in which the rest of the country is languishing in the dark, hungry, struggling, and desperate, and a small number of elite, rich, white men, only white, and their wives, who don't work, they live in comfort, and everyone else lives in shit. Let me show you guys what's happening. That's Cuba. So they're willing to do that to all of Latin America, to resubordinate Latin America, you know, as we did during the bad old days of the CIA, toppling regimes and controlling Latin American countries. They want to go back to that. So they're going to turn all of those countries back into, you know, the Chile of Allende, and, you know, the old Chile where they toppled Allende. They, you know, the Pinochet version of Chile. They want to go back to that kind of Henry Kissinger-esque U.S. control over all of Latin America, because they probably just want to turn it all into AI factories and make everyone into slaves or whatever. They want to do that all throughout Latin America and the Caribbean. They want to do it to Cuba. They want to do it to Haiti. They want to control. It's feudalism. And they're the lords and everyone else is the serfs. But they also want to do it here. They don't want to just do it out there. They want to do it here in the United States. But they want to start with and confine it, if possible, to the brown and black places. So let's go to the U.S. territory of Puerto Rico. Here's what's happening there right now.
Y estoy llamando la voz del país que está planteando que no nos vamos a quedar callados ante el abuso, ante los atropellos. Un país sin agua y sin luz, y nos están agrediendo la policía de la gobernadora de Puerto Rico. Y nosotros y nosotras vamos a ejercer nuestro derecho. No nos vamos a intimidar. Vamos a tirar para adelante, puñeta, que este país se respeta.
When yelling that the police have come out to confront people who are outside of their homes because there's no lights. The power outages that are happening again in Puerto Rico. People are without power, can't run generators, or running on, if you don't have a generator, you're out of power again. Bad Bunny actually recently did a concert and he said that what am I supposed to do? I'm trying to give a little joy to people who literally are living with no lights on in their homes. It's actually kind of crazy, right? Like Puerto Rico, and by the way, this is not like a new thing. It's not just based on a storm. There was a recent weather event, but Puerto Rico, regardless of whether there is a hurricane or another weather event, they literally just stay having power outages. In fact, they have more power outages than any other U.S. state or territory. According to one study, other than Texas, which has them a lot too, but that's different. They have a private grid that doesn't work. It's not connected to the main grid. So that's privatization. In Puerto Rico, it just keeps happening. There was a study by the U.S. Energy Information Administration, it's called the USEIA, that says that even without hurricanes, customers in Puerto Rico lose 27 hours of power per year. I mean, 27 hours of power per year. Puerto Rico is constantly facing power outages. It's almost as if they're not in the United States. Remember when Donald Trump's friend Tony Hinchcliffe called Puerto Rico an island of garbage? Remember that? And then all the Puerto Rican Trumpers in the audience cheered and voted for him anyway. Yeah, Puerto Rico is completely neglected, even though they have to pay federal taxes. That sounds like taxation without representation. This is part of the national grid, supposedly, but it somehow, weirdly enough, never works in the brown island of Puerto Rico. It just doesn't work. And that's Puerto Rico, which is, brown people who speak Spanish. And Bad Bunny lives there. So, of course, the regime doesn't give a crap about them. I mean, they've tried to even hit them with ICE and try to, deport them. Deport them to where? Puerto Rico's in the U.S. They're Americans. They're American citizens, U.S. citizens. But they can't even count on the federal government to give them power. They're living in Grover Norquist world. If you can't find some private way of getting power, you're just out of luck for the most part. 27 hours a year in Puerto Rico. That's what it's looking like there now. But we're also seeing the exact same phenomenon happen on the mainland. On the mainland. I want to show you what's happening in Gary, Indiana, a red state, which in theory means they got some of that infrastructure money. They probably got more of the infrastructure money than a blue state like Maryland got, or a purple state like Virginia got. That's a red state, Indiana, run by Republicans. Gary, Indiana, for a full week has had no power, just like what's happening in Puerto Rico, where you saw everybody was outside, or Cuba, where everybody's outside, can't eat, can't cook. If you have a CPAP machine, good luck to you surviving, because you can't plug it in, that kind of thing. Thousands of people in Gary, Indiana have been without power since August 11, since before Jason and I went on vacation. The cause, powerful storms that also killed at least 7 people. More than half of the city's residents have lost electricity. And the lights, according to CBS, a local CBS station, are not expected to come back on until the earliest tomorrow. Take a look.
Gary, Indiana, but it's been over 240,000 people without power. No lights, no Wi-Fi, can't charge your phone. It's women taking cold showers. Everybody's refrigerators off. It's restaurants closed. My neighbor's been barbecuing meat every night, and his kids outside playing, having fun. It's fucked in the dark because there's no school.
We are currently day 7, no power. Don't even know when our power is going to be restored at this point because the time keeps changing. But let me show y'all how dark it is. There we go. Completely dark. It's not safe. People are breaking in people's houses and everything.
We thugged it out through the whole 7 days, and I didn't want to get a hotel because I didn't know how long this was gonna last, and I wanted to save as much money as I could just to, just in case, because you just never know how much money you're gonna need because how long this tragedy gonna go on. So on the 7th day, I finally bought a hotel room, right? It was power. We went where the power was, right? No storm, no nothing. The power went out in here.
Last night got really crazy. There were a lot of pew-pew shots right outside of my door. We actually just heard some coming in. So guess what we did? We went to Bass Pro Shop and got some. Just in case you didn't know, it is pitch black dark still in this house everywhere. Actually, you don't even see a street light, do you?
News is not reaching people. It seems like the only videos that are getting reach are from people who are affected immediately by the situation. For some context, you guys, it's now been 8 days that most of Northwest Indiana has not had any power, and this has caused gas shortages and just closed gas stations due to this event. Gary, Indiana still has no power. Looting is beginning, and they're deploying the National Guard down there.
If the entire Los Angeles County, we're talking about Compton, Malibu, Hollywood, if all of that had no power, it's all you would hear about. That's all. If the entire metropolitan New York area did not have power right now, there would be nothing else you would be hearing about. But because this is an area with primarily black and brown folk, you barely even know about this.
How we gonna do a food tour in the Midwest and Gary ain't had no power and ain't nobody talking about it? I, for one, have not seen anybody else outside of Gary, Indiana talk about what's going on in Gary, Indiana. And I don't like it. And if you know me, you know I put my money where my mouth is. So today alone, we've been on the phone with the mayor's office to see if there's ways we can get involved. We've been on the phone with Salvation Army to see if we can get a Salvation Army truck and just drive around and pass out necessities, goods, anything that we can get our hands on.
As of Sunday, more than 28,000 customers were still without power, according to the Northern Indiana Public Service Company. The Indiana Governor, Mike Braun, Republican, requested an expedited major disaster declaration on Thursday from FEMA for 54 counties, estimating damages from the storm, which is what caused the initial power outage. And it was 99 mile per hour winds that downed trees on power lines. He estimated that the cost of repairing that is going to be more than $5 billion. Now, I want to note, today is August 24, 2026. On August 23, 2005, Hurricane Katrina began forming in the Gulf of Mexico. By August 30th, it had reached full speed. The end of August in 2005 was hell in particularly the 9th Ward of New Orleans. And the federal government, under another Republican president, did absolutely nothing to save those people. In fact, the people that were caught in Hurricane Katrina and who were floating on rooftops using bed sheets to wave white sheet in the air to try to get saved by rescue ships and floating on the refrigerators down the street or watching dead bodies float by them. Those people were criminalized by the United States media and treated like looters and criminals when they were desperate to survive. Many of those people have now left New Orleans. A lot of them are living in Houston, while the 9th Ward is being completely and rapidly gentrified. That was a man-made disaster in which a Black community was effectively driven out of New Orleans so that it could be gentrified, so that the same Epstein class of rich people could take their land. Meanwhile, a lot of them lost their lives, lost their homes, lost their inheritance, lost their generational wealth, or what wealth they had was in their home. And that was taking place in the red state of Louisiana. At the time, I believe it did have a Democratic governor, Kathleen Blanco, and the mayor of New Orleans was a Democrat. And they were thoroughly blamed for that. But in this case, in Indiana, this is a Republican administration. What are they doing for the people of Gary, Indiana? It's weird, right? Republicans come along, and at the federal level, it seems like infrastructure just collapses, even though I just told you that the Biden administration and Democrats in the House and Senate passed $1.7 trillion with a T in infrastructure that mostly went to red states like Indiana. You ought to be asking, where the hell is that money? Where did the money go? It sure didn't go to Gary or to shoring up their defenses against a windstorm, because they're now without power since before Jason and I went on vacation. And it's not just Gary. Let me take you to another red state. Oh, by the way, and I love that Ray Sunshine just pointed out that Gary is surrounded by data centers. Guess who is not struggling without power right now? The data center. The data centers are fine. Guess who has power in Cuba? The Four Seasons Hotel. The data centers are going to be fine. Yeah, Memphis is surrounded by data centers. But now, this is what's happening inside of Memphis. Memphis, yes, surrounded by data centers, and they ain't losing power, but I want you to listen. Look, this is A4.
Jarius Adams, and here's what you need to know. You remember when we talked about residents of Gary, Indiana going more than 2 weeks without power? Well, they still don't have power, but the same thing is happening in Memphis, Tennessee. A severe storm came through Memphis this weekend with winds up to 60 miles an hour. It impacted 130,000 Memphis light, gas, and water customers. And even this Sunday, there's 100,000 people that are still impacted without electricity. The Memphis Light, Gas, and Water says that this is a multi-day project, and they said that full restoration won't happen until probably this Thursday. That's more than a multi-day. That's almost a week. Can you imagine the things that are needed? Now, they said they're prioritizing treatment plants and hospitals and places that, quote unquote, need it faster, but There are folks that are at home on ventilators and need breathing treatments and things that need to be plugged up to electricity. This is really dangerous, and it's seeing it in so many predominantly black communities. First Gary, Indiana, now Memphis, Tennessee, and it seems like they're ongoing. We have to have a conversation about emergency response or maybe preventative measures, because this can't continue to happen. And the question may be, are communities prepared for extreme weather events? Because losing power is not just an inconvenience. You're talking about refrigeration, medical equipment, the things people need, air conditioning, right? Memphis, Tennessee in the summertime, I'm from Mississippi, I know it is hot. Folks need air. And having to wait almost a week to have your electricity restored is kind of ridiculous, especially by a company that I'm sure if you're late paying your bill, your electricity will be cut off. So stay tuned. We're going to follow for more.
So a social media user is more on top of what's happening in Memphis than the federal government. Have you heard the federal government saying anything about what's happening in Memphis? I don't know. Per a local news station, Saturday night's Bo Echo storm with confirmed straight line winds of 80 miles per hour was the 7th most damaging storm in the history of that region, according to the president of the utility, the president and CEO. It says, quote, it harkens back to Hurricane Elvis. And the company is called MLGW. MLGW's president and CEO, Doug McGowan, referencing the 2003 straight line windstorm that caused extensive tree building and utility damage across this area. The utility said the storm unexpectedly gained strength as it crossed the Mississippi River around 5 p.m. on Saturday. The winds caused extensive damage to Memphis Light and Water's electric system. Okay? So Memphis also facing power outages. And we harken back again, all of these years after Hurricane Katrina, apparently the federal government and the states have learned nothing about emergency response because people are still struggling. By the way, this recently happened in North Carolina as well. Donald Trump went down and promised that only he would help them, and he didn't do crap for them either. There was just a weird thing. I guess every time there's a Republican president, the damaging, insane weather events followed by a lack of federal response. But again, this one is, I think it's different because of that big infrastructure bill and all that spending that went disproportionately to states like Indiana and Tennessee. And I want to remind you that Memphis, Tennessee is the U.S. city with one of the highest percentages of African Americans living there. If you could throw up A6, Jason. These are the states with the highest percentage black population. Sorry, I made this quickly, so there's two twos there. But South Fulton, Georgia, Fulton County, of course, is constantly being targeted by the Trump regime. Jackson, Mississippi, of course, we know is 80% black. We know that Detroit, Michigan is also 80% black. Birmingham, Alabama is next, and Miami Gardens, Florida, which, of course, we just saw big elections that impacted there. I guess they're now being represented by Debbie Wasserman Schultz, which makes no sense. And then there's Memphis, Tennessee, right there at number 6, 63.34% African American. Then Montgomery, Baltimore, Augusta, and Shreveport. I put Gary, Indiana separate because it has a tiny population, so it doesn't make the top 10 because it doesn't have a large overall numeric population, but by percentage, it's 74.76% African American. So it is brown and black Puerto Rico, brown and black outside the country, Cuba, heavily African American Gary, and heavily African American Memphis that are taking the brunt of these infrastructural damages from these storms and getting less protection than the data centers around them, less protection than the billionaires who live in their communities. I guarantee none of those people are out of power. And so you have to start asking yourself, what is it that you get for government? You're paying taxes. Each and every one of these people are paying taxes. They're paying taxes, both state and federal. They're paying sales taxes. Even if they fall below the threshold to pay federal income taxes, they're paying taxes every time they shop. So they are paying into a system that is literally abandoning them at a time when the regime is as derelict as the Bush II regime was during Katrina, but far more vicious and more pernicious and more open about the fact that black lives and brown lives do not matter to them. That they don't care if black and brown people literally die in the dark, without electricity, without access to clean water, without access to edible food. They don't care, because the whole purpose of Project 2025 is to reset the system back to its status quo ante, an oligarchy in which there is a small number of rich white elites who are the only people allowed to go to college and get their children educated, the only people allowed to have good federal jobs, even if they're thoroughly unqualified for them, the only people allowed to rise to 1- and 2-star generals in the United States military, even if they are thoroughly unqualified to do so, the only people allowed to lead the military, even if they're a TV host who's thoroughly unqualified to do so. The WWE ladies running the Department of Education and saying that we're going to start training children in grade school to do trades rather than put them on a track to go into college, because again, only the elite get to go to college. Even if they're the stupid elite, even if they're the unqualified elite, they get college. You get a trade that serves them. You will serve them. They are resetting the country to the status quo ante. That is what Donald Trump means by Make America Great Again. That is what Project 2025 is about. It's about stripping the country of its modernity, even if that means physically destroying the country, allowing nature to do so, as these data centers befoul the air, befoul the water, and make all of it, making climate change worse. The ramifications of climate change as they switch from clean energy back to dirty oil and coal, destroying the planet, so you get more storms, more lethal storms, more death, more destruction, and they could give a damn how that destruction lands on you, because they don't care what happens to you, your community, your city, your children, none of it. Because the Epstein class, they mean to live in Elysium. It's they haven't left the planet yet to go and live on Mars or something. And I guess they're just waiting for Elon to figure that out, so they can leave here and leave this planet as their plantation. Our planet, our country is just one big plantation to these people. And until y'all figure that out, we're never going to advance, because there are a lot of people who are missing the plot. They think that there is some Democratic and Republican party, that there's partisan, there's party. None of that is real. All of that is theater. We're going to talk about it a little bit more in this show. All of that is theater. The real story here is that there is a rich, white, racist, sexist elite that thinks you are cattle, and they're going to keep treating you as cattle until you stop them. Let me give you all some breaking news. I've just been handed this by Queen Winsome. The Supreme Court, to that point, because they have a Supreme Court, they have sided with Donald Trump on mail voting restrictions ahead of the midterms. This is the Associated Press. The Supreme Court sided with the Trump regime, I say regime, they say administration, Monday in a case over President Donald Trump's executive order restricting mail-in voting. Though it remains unclear how much can be implemented before the fast approaching midterm elections. The decision leaves room for additional court challenges that could further slow Trump's order. And other similar cases have already been filed. The U.S. Postal Service laid out how it would implement the order last week, but time is running short to impose major changes, with some states beginning to send mail-in ballots to voters in just a few weeks. The Supreme Court's conservative majority didn't decide the legality of Trump's order, instead ruling that the states did not have legal right to challenge it. The court's disposition of this application does not mean that any measure taken by the government to implement the order will necessarily be lawful. On that score, time will tell, the majority wrote in an unsigned order. It was 6-3, of course, the usual 6. The 3 liberal justices publicly dissented, with Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson writing that the rule lets another shoe drop in the Kafkaesque nightmare that our precedents have been steadily creating for certain plaintiffs who seek to bring election-related challenges, unquote. New York Attorney General LaTosha James foreshadowed more legal wrangling, calling the decision a painful setback, but vowing it would not be the final word. States are also suing over this because what they're trying to do is to ensure that you can never remove them. This regime, thank you very much, Winsome, this regime intends to make you into chattel and then make it impossible for you to stop them ever, because they're never going to let you remove them. Last thing I'm going to say before we move on. If you are not determined to vote early in this election, if you do not make a plan to vote early in this election and you count on getting into the maw of election day, you will not be able to count on your vote counting. You need to make a plan to vote early as possible. if you're going to vote absentee, you need to put that joint in the mail. Don't wait till putting that in the mail on election day thinking that postmark's going to save you. That's what they're trying to stop. That if it's received after election day, it won't count. And I promise you that same 6 that just decided this are going to decide that Donald Trump can ban states from accepting late mail-in ballots or even ban them, period. Keep a weather eye on what these people are doing. They're trying to stay in power forever. Let's move on to our second thing, which is really on the same note. Let me remind you, because again, this Trump-Epstein regime, Epstein believed in this techno-feudalism. He gathered around him leading figures at Harvard, Alan Dershowitz, all the former president of Harvard, all of them were around him, but so were Peter Thiel, drew him in, drew Elon Musk in, drew all the big techno-feudalists in. This is all one big group of people who believe that there is an elite, an elect of white men, and everyone else is cattle, and they're going to go back to the status quo ante, okay? Donald Trump, of course, is one of them. They don't respect him, but he's very useful because he's a shiny key you can wave at stupid people, and they will fall in love with him and do whatever he says, right? And they'll follow him over the cliff because he says so while he gets to get rich on the side. He's not running this. He's barely alive at this point. He's, weighs, 400 pounds and has got dementia or whatever. But it doesn't matter. He still has a cult, and the cult is being thrown off the cliff. They'll just follow him off the cliff because they hear the giddy music and they go off the cliff with him. But Jeffrey Epstein is the thing that could break the camel's back. Jeffrey Epstein is his Achilles heel because Jeffrey Epstein's got the secrets to what it is that Trump and this Epstein regime are all doing. And so Donald Trump can never allow the Epstein files to truly be released and the truth about what Epstein was up to be fully released and his involvement in it. So Michael Cohen used to sound realistic. In 2019, he was prosecuted by the Trump administration, and he turned on Trump. Here he was in 2019. This is how we talked about Trump then, 2019.
Because I know what Mr. Trump is. He is a racist, he is a con man, and he is a cheat.
So he goes to jail. He goes on my show, lots of different shows on the former MSNBC, goes all over talk radio, ends up working with Midas Touch, screaming about how Donald Trump is an authoritarian, how he's never going to leave office. He's been on this very show talking about the dangers of Donald Trump, that he's a complete autocrat and that we have to beware. He'll never leave, all of the things. And then he seemed to suddenly, almost on a dime, decide that he wanted to go back home. Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's lawyer for 10 years, who insisted to us on this very show that he knew nothing about Jeffrey Epstein, that he never saw Jeffrey Epstein, never met him, never heard about him, had no idea, only knew that there was a Jane Doe who didn't exist, but never knew that Donald Trump was involved in anything Epstein. Suddenly, after Donald Trump cast him out of the kingdom, he decided he wanted back in. Oh, what a change.
Back to 2016 if we can, because you and I have obviously traveled a pretty rocky road together. Do you remember, sir, when I went on CNN with Breonna Keeler and she told me that you were underwater in the polls and I responded with those famous 2 words, says who, which became some worldwide meme.
A good advocate, and then they weaponized you like nobody's ever been weaponized, like few have been.
Well, maybe just you and I, sir.
And you, yeah, me too, but I don't consider mine, mine was at a level that nobody's ever seen before. But they weaponized you. They weaponized a lot of people. And I respect the fact that you recanted everything you said. And that's a big thing that you did.
Joining me now is our good friend, Lev Parnas. Lev remembers, also an independent candidate for Congress in the great state of Florida. Hey, Lev.
Hey, Joy. I never thought I was muted. It's so great to see you. I hope you had a good vacation. I missed you.
I did have a great vacation.
For a little bit.
I know. I don't know how I resisted texting you for additional tea while I was gone, but I know that you were working behind the scenes. Love your background there. You've got a really cool set. Talk to me about this flip. You and I did text about this. Y'all know that Lev is my text buddy. We talk behind the scenes. What is behind Michael Cohen's re-entry into Trump land?
Thanks, Joy. Very important because a lot of people, the media, the mass media is reporting on it, leaking on it, saying that this has to do with the Alvin Bragg, LaTosha James case and that Michael Cohen is going to help him out. Now, I want to make it clear. Two things could be right at the same time. And the one thing that they are not reporting on, the thing that is more important and what you just touched on in your opening has to do with the Epstein case, has to do with, the Jane Doe, Katie Johnson, again, I'm not here to say that Donald Trump or Michael Cohen did a criminal act. We don't have any proof of that.
Correct.
The proof that we are trying to get to is that Michael Cohen knows more than he does, that he's saying. Michael Cohen, and this is why right now you're having the relationship happen, because something interesting happened in this whole thing. While Michael Cohen was playing Substack, playing the media, coming on your show, talking about how he didn't want a pardon, how he didn't want anything to do with Trump, now we know that he's already been in touch with Donald Trump going back to Bedminster, going back to the summer of last year. So while he was doing this, he was already in touch. He's already met Donald Trump several times. They've already discussed the game plan. But the one thing that came out that pushed this thing over the edge and set this thing all in motion was that Rule 35 letter. The infamous Rule 35 letter that came out and basically said that Michael Cohen had information about Epstein. And just like you said, he's been going on every show, your show, my show, every show out there that you could say, and said he has nothing to do, doesn't know, he's never even heard of Epstein. And here in this letter that was filed by his lawyers, a legal letter to the prosecutors while he was in jail, saying that he had information about Donald Trump and Epstein. When we confronted him on that, and when Ellie and others on this platform, we started going after him and really putting his feet to the pressure.
That's Ellie Leonard, those of you, not Ellie Mistal, Ellie Leonard.
Yes,
Yeah.
Ellie Leonard, thank you. That is when Cohen really reached out to Trump and basically said, I'm alone on the island again. And he reminded Trump, which a lot of people don't remember, is Cohen was pissed, telling Trump all along was, I was willing to take a bullet for you. Why did you have to lay me out there? Why did you, if you would have told me. So what Cohen was basically telling Trump is that if he leaves him on the island alone, eventually the pressure is going to get to him. Eventually he's going to break. Eventually he's going to have to talk about more than just the Stormy Daniels case, because from day one, Cohen, he's very, very creative, very, very slick, because he was able to fool a lot of people by basically giving information about one situation, about the Stormy Daniels situation. He never went about Trump's relationships with any Russian oligarchs, which he was aware of a lot, or any of the properties or buildings that were sold. I mean, even a simple one like the Rubelov property, a property that was sold that had to do with Epstein, a property that was sold in West Palm Beach, that Cohen was the lawyer that was involved in the sale, even that he would not talk about. So that is the true reason why Cohen and why Trump is coming back to Cohen. And another thing, very important, Joy, I want to say, Trump says there to Michael Cohen that the only reason I took you back is because you recanted everything. Right. This is very you spoke about this and we texted. This is a very important thing because Michael Cohen testified under oath. It's one thing Michael Cohen writing a letter on Substack saying he felt that he was pushed or into saying what he wants. It's another thing going under oath and saying that I lied and I was manipulated and something else. So Michael Cohen has put himself again into a little box here where, depending on how LaTosha James, how Alvin Bragg, and how Donald Trump proceeds going forward. But the one
So what you're saying, to be clear, is he testified under oath. I mean, first of all, that testimony to Congress was under oath as well. He eventually got prosecuted for lying to Congress. But if he did go on Substack, for those of you who don't remember the story, and said that he felt pressured by Attorney General LaTosha James and by DA Alvin Bragg to testify in Donald Trump's hush money case. And he did testify to Donald Trump's huge detriment in that case. He was devastating to Trump in that case. He was the key witness, or at least he was one of the key witnesses. And now if he's saying that testimony, he's recanted it and then it was a lie. I mean, legally, I'm not a lawyer, but can you just recant testimony under oath that you gave in a criminal case?
No, and that's why he has himself in the corner. And because Donald Trump keeps saying that you recanted it, but if you take
Right.
a look at the interview, Michael Cohen doesn't say I recanted.
Right. Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
actually,
He's a good
Cohen
lawyer.
went
He's
on.
smart enough not to
Right.
do that.
Yeah, Cohen plays the game because Cohen actually went on Jake Tapper right before the interview aired, and Tapper asked him. He said, "Do you stand by any of the? I mean, are you recanting any of the things you said about And he played some clips about Cohen, testifying against Trump, and Cohen responded by saying, my past with my good friend, the 50. I mean, Joy, I can't even believe that I'm saying this. Cohen said, my friend, the 15 years good friend, we're not going to talk about the past. We're only going to move forward. So we're not going to talk about. I mean, they're turning it into a love story. I mean, this is like, a rekindle of a friendship that was made in heaven and that was broken up by the deep state, by the Democrats. They were targeting him. They pushed him into this, and now he's so proud of him. He's back home.
Do you think? I mean, I could see a world, and again, we are not alleging. We don't know if there's any criminality. We don't know if Michael Cohen even knows about crimes that were ever committed. We don't know what he knows because he's very opaque. I mean, I've had a lot of.
He knows. That's all we know.
We just know We just know that he was Donald Trump's lawyer for 10 years, and that the time in which he was Donald Trump's attorney, it overlaps with some cases that had to do with Jeffrey Epstein. And so it just strains credulity that he never heard about Jeffrey Epstein at all during that time. Never heard anything about Donald Trump's behavior that might have been Epstein, that he never heard of any of that, but he just only heard about the one thing, Stormy Daniels. That could be true, as far as we don't know. And we're not saying it isn't. We're just saying it's a lot to take in and believe. Do you believe that Michael Cohen, when he issued that letter, which he told me he only issued that Rule 35 letter in order to try to get out of prison, which of course anyone would do, and that he really didn't have anything real. What he was going to present to them was that he had investigated the Jane Doe case, not one of the 3 different Jane Doe cases, the one where the lady didn't have an address and he went and he just found a parking lot, that's what he was going to give them. He was giving them something fake because he just wanted to get out of jail. You don't believe that?
Well, I watched that interview and I was cracking up in the background. I couldn't even believe that he was saying that to you, because if you speak to any legal, first of all, he at that time had some very powerful lawyers. I forgot their names, but very serious lawyers. And they would never bring that to the DOJ. If Michael Cohen told them, I'm going to give you some wild goose. I remember he told you something to the effect, let them go find the evidence. Let them go chase it, like something to that. It doesn't work like that. I mean, when you're in prison and I've been to prison and I've had the same prosecutor as Michael Cohen. I went through the same system, went to the same prison as Michael Cohen. I mean, identical situation. And I could tell you one thing is a Rule 35 is so serious. I mean, you don't just file it. You have to be able to give enough information to be able to be sufficient enough to bring such, either a conviction or something to be able to get out. You don't just file Rule 35 motions. Michael Cohen knows that. He's a lawyer. He doesn't. And that's what triggered Donald Trump. That's the whole thing that triggered this whole thing, is because what Donald Trump and Cohen have together. And it's interesting because people say, well, why didn't Cohen talk about it earlier? Cohen could have said that earlier, because the thing that people don't realize about Michael Cohen, and I want everybody to understand this. See, I was the one that Trump and Giuliani put on Michael Cohen to dig into Michael Cohen, to dig into his dirt, to be able to go after him. When Michael Cohen flipped on Trump back in 2018, I'm the one that was put to go after him. So the one thing Cohen has always been worried about, and that's why he never spoke about anything else, is being involved in another indictment of other criminalities. There might be, because of especially what happened here. And that's why Cohen played the line. That's why he went against the prosecutor. That's why he lied to them. That's why he played the game and made it seem like it was like just because of Trump. But at the end of the day, Michael Cohen, like you said, has been his lawyer for a very long time. A lot of people also forgot, because we have short memories. Not only that, but also generations back. For the past 10 years, we've been watching a Michael Cohen that's been coming out attacking Donald Trump, talking about, not retribution, his mea culpa, talking about how he's a changed man. And in 10
he wrote
years,
a whole book called Revenge, in which he said Trump was going to take revenge on the country.
Exactly. But think about how many young people that were 10 years old, 15 years old, that are now 25. Now, don't remember the old Michael Cohen, the Michael Cohen that
Yeah.
threatened over 500 people on behalf of Donald Trump, the Michael Cohen that screamed at a reporter that he's going to rip his lungs out because, Ivana Trump said that she was going to sue him for rape. I mean, they forgot that Michael Cohen was the one that sent people to, he himself admitted, this is the crazy part, Joy. It doesn't matter if it's a Jane Doe or if it's a Katie Johnson. He himself said that he sent private investigators to try to find who this person is. So Michael Cohen is not some angel. Michael Cohen has never come out and said he was. Michael Cohen was always pissed at the system. He was always angry at that he was left to dry and he was not part of the team. And Michael Cohen, when Donald Trump won, a lot of people didn't realize it, but Michael Cohen was very close to me, and you know that, Joy, and he was trying from day one to get a pardon. That was, he was pissed at the Bidens. He wanted to get a pardon, and he knew he could get Trump a win. The one thing he couldn't realize and didn't realize, because the Epstein files were not even around at that time. Remember, they were dead. Nobody was talking about it until like 7 months later, until that hit. That is what brought them together, because everybody, Cohen again became a man on the island, just like he was in 2018, where everybody started putting pressure on him, saying, Michael, you know more. He dug himself a hole by going on your show and other shows, by trying to pretend Jane Doe this, Jane Doe 3. People like Ellie Leonard and Zev Shalev didn't buy it, investigated, found out the truth. And at that point, they had another meeting at which, they basically said, we got to bring Michael back in. And that's when they brought him to ABC 77, gave him a show. And this is his kind of like, thing where he's at right now.
His redemption song. All right. Well, let me move on to another, because this is another part of the Epstein regime as well. Jared Kushner, because, everybody's part of the what did John Ossoff call it? Did he call it the Mar-a-Lago Mafia? So let's go through another part of the Mar-a-Lago Mafia. I love John Ossoff. He's great. This is Hakeem Jeffries. We were just at NABJ. He was on just before my panel at NABJ, and he said this in Atlanta.
If you've got people in office who are focused primarily in enriching themselves, their family, their friends, and their donors, then they're not focused on making life more affordable for the American people. And so from beginning on day one, we're going to hold the crooks accountable.
So that's what Hakeem Jeffries said in Atlanta. Then not long after that, this past week, he had an interesting meeting with a member of the Mar-a-Lago Mafia, Jared Kushner. They had a private meeting, allegedly to discuss ways in which a Democratic-led House of Representatives could find common ground with the Trump regime. What on earth? Do you know what this meeting was about? What was promised? What was said?
I know some. I'm going to give some of your viewers actually the tea. I actually literally 5 minutes before I went on your show finished, and I posted up my letter on Substack, the real story behind Jeffrey, the meeting. I've been on the phone most of the days trying to dig into what really is going on. So let me bring it back. First of all, I want to start off by saying everything I'm going to tell you does not mean that Jeffries is complicit in anything. I want to say right after that I can't confirm of an exact deal that has been set or done. But with that said, what my sources are confirming to me that there was obviously lots of conversations going on in the White House with the midterms. What, plan B, plan C, what are they going to do? They understand that everything, especially, with the infighting inside the Democratic Party, they're trying to figure out, use certain things. Jared Kushner came out and basically said that he thinks that the weak link and the one that they go after is Hakeem Jeffries for several reasons. A, because of they intertwine a lot of, Jeffries has lately become a powerhouse in raising money, corporate money. A lot of that money has intertwined with a lot of Kushner's investors and people that
And with
So
APAC, right? I mean, they're both APAC friends.
APAC, the biggest one, so
Yeah.
obviously, but it's not just APAC. There's like, a bunch of Wall Street money, but APAC, yes, APAC being the obvious one. Not only that, but Jeffries, obviously, it's common knowledge that him and Kushner worked in Trump's first administration on the first Save Act, I think the criminal act that they worked together on. Because of that, they built a relationship in sort of a way. Kushner is very interesting kind of a guy where he could be very easygoing and look like he's a pushover. So I would see how Jeffries might think that he's the one that's getting over on it. But Kushner basically was sent in to try to figure out what is it, because they understand that Jeffrey needs some sort of wins. He's getting crushed. He's getting demolished. And what is it that because this is a quid pro quo government. This is a quid pro quo president. This is a quid pro quo. So they're figuring out what is it that they could give Jeffries to slow down the onslaught, knowing that they're not going to stop.
Meaning the onslaught of investigation.
Subpoena power investigations and all of that. And they know Jeffries, Schumer, this is the type of group that will come out and say, look, we rather get Medicaid for all or get the help on Medicaid or something like that than try to do impeachment right now. And these are so basically, long story short, he dangled the carrots. Now, but something interesting happened also, that the reporting that made me go even further, which makes me think that there was a deal set. And this is where I'm going to go, is when they reported on that Kushner recommended that Jeffrey meet with Susie Wiles. Now, when Kushner recommended that Jeffries meet with Susie Wiles, that basically it's like a baseball bat hit me across the head. Reminded me exactly, the same pattern that took place in the first administration. Because in the first administration, it was people like myself and Giuliani that would be doing the shadow diplomacy work and then sending it to people like Pompeo, Bolton, people in the administration. So this is basically what is going on now. They are setting up a plan. They sent in the people like a Kushner where you could, pretend you don't know what they were speaking about. It could have been a million things. You could guess, you could play the game. But the fact that he's now sending him, wanted to send Jeffries over to Susie Wiles, what it's telling me is they got Jeffries somehow in their pocket. That Jeffries bid on something, and they're trying to now have Susie, because Susie now is the chief of staff, the administration, is now going to close the deal. Correct. Now,
Lord
what that is,
mercy.
I don't know yet. Yeah, but it's not good no matter how you look at it, because, I mean, Jeffrey should not be meeting with Kushner. Jeffrey should have kicked his ass out the door and said, listen, I'll see you in 3 months. And then, when I'm subpoenaing your ass and what you're doing in Russia, what you're doing in the Middle East, or, the land you're selling in Gaza and all the other shit that he's involved with. I mean, that's the conversation Jeffrey should be having with him. And unfortunately, he's not. And, any negotiation right now is just a huge win to the Trump administration. You only got to deal strength with strength on this situation. So, and I'm going to be looking more into this. So, Joy,
please do. And you know what to do when you get the info. Hit that text and holler at your girl and come back on and tell us. Lev Parnas always has a T. Make sure that you are following Lev Remembers on Substack. Also, levparnas.org. That is his campaign website. Make sure that you send this man to Congress. We need truth tellers to be keeping a weather eye on both political parties. Lev is an indie, so he can keep an eye on both of them. He can look with one eye this way. He's just going to keep pivoting his head and looking at them both and making sure that they're both doing the right for the American people. Thank you very much. I appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you, Joy. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.
God bless.
Take care, guys.
You too. Thank you very much. I want to remind you all that Donald Trump has called Hakeem Jeffries a thug. At a May campaign event, he referred to him as low IQ. He is the person he claims, Donald Trump says, that it is Hakeem Jeffries that inspired him to coin the term Democrats. Hakeem Jeffries routinely suggests that Donald Trump is not only extreme, but also corrupt, vowing that he's, as you just heard, going to hold the crooks accountable if they won control. This, according to the New York Times, the private get-together was described by one of the people as a catch-up for Mr. Kushner and Mr. Jeffries. The two men have stayed in touch, again, as you heard Lev say, as they work together on criminal justice bill midway through Trump's first term. According to the New York Times, they're saying they discussed housing, immigration, and the high cost of living as potential areas of common ground. Mr. Kushner suggests that Mr. Jeffrey should meet with Susie Wiles. I am appalled-ish. Donald Trump, by the way, has refused to sign a bipartisan housing bill. If they're looking for areas of cooperation, he could just sign that. He's not. Donald Trump, what he really wants is to not be investigated. He does not want House committees to be holding hearings and subpoenaing members of his regime or even himself. That is what he wants out of that deal. And we'll see if Hakeem Jeffries, who, by the way, is invited to come on this show and explain his side of that meeting. Hakeem Jeffries, Leader Jeffries, you are absolutely welcome to come on. But what we don't want is the people to believe that these parties are coalescing in a scheme in which we ain't in the room. Welcome to hour 2 of the Joy Reid Show. Do be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Also, please click the notification and hit all to go ahead and train that algorithm to tell you whenever we're live and help spread the word and help us out with the algorithm. I will say one more thing about the Hakeem of it all. This does not mean we want to keep Mike Johnson as speaker. What it means is that we have to keep an eye on every single politician because they all do work for us. A lot of mercy, as says somebody in our chat there. Nikki Mark says, a lot of mercy. We have to keep an eye on all of them, and we have to make sure that they are all understanding who they work for. They work for us, and their time in leadership can be short-lived if we decide to fire them. And so we need to make sure that we are paying attention to who they are. This brings me to our one of our great sponsors for this hour of the show. The Joy Reid Show is brought to you by our friends here at Bullies, Parasites, and Slaves. And this is a book by Dr. George Byron Koch, which seems quite apropos in this moment. We're talking about the fact that the bad guys, the billionaires, have decided to turn us into the last thing listed here, that. And listen, people are reading again, which is a good thing. And if you're not, you should be doing so. And if your CEO is making more before lunch than you make in a whole year, and politicians are benefiting themselves rather than you, who's paying their salary, well, on what planet is that normal, logical, or right? This book exposes all of it, how you've been ruthlessly underpaid and punished if you object, how your hard work subsidizes those who claim that they're above you. George Koch reveals the stories, the true history, the actual facts, so you can help others see them as well. He then shows us the way out, how we can meet each other's needs, the ones that we all have in common. And when your needs are met, you actually can be a good and efficient citizen, and a citizen that's more involved and more invested in the country. It's logical. It's the golden rule of mutual care. You can get it in paperback, which is what I have here. You can also get it in digital or also in audio. But either way, please get this book. For us all to take back our lives, we have to be informed. Bullies, Parasites, and Slaves will do that. The subhead is Replacing Exploitation with Mutual Care. You can get it today online at your local bookstore, bookshop.org. You can shop there, or you can go to bps.online, bps.online. And then the other way to get it is just to text CARE to 511-511. If you cannot afford to buy the book, excuse me, I'm having hiccups. If you cannot afford to buy the book, I hate hiccups. If you cannot afford to buy the book, they'll give it to you for free. So if you actually need the book and you can't afford it and you don't see it at your local library, I have the hiccups. If you text CARE to 511-511, they'll send it to you for free. The devil gave me hiccups, Jason. I have hiccups.
I was about to say, do you have water? Get that water there.
I hate hiccups more than anything.
I hope you don't have a hiccup fit, because that would be.
Hiccups are the worst. It's worse than a sneezing fit.
I had one of those.
Because you can't. It's your diaphragm just going, whoa, and it just won't stop. I actually hate it. But yeah, the devil is. Somebody said, "Boo!" Scared him out of me. Thank you very much. I appreciate the chat. The YouTube chat has cured my hiccups. We appreciate it. Let me see what the Substackers have got. If you guys got any hiccup cures for me, holler at your girl, because I hate these hiccups. Jumping over to the Twitch team. If anybody has any hiccup cures, please throw them into the chat. Let me check the Facebook chat. Y'all are naughty and ill-behaved sometimes. I'm gonna check you guys. Y'all be rowdy over there in the face. They be wild in the Facebook chat. They're wild over there. They have to fight a lot of more trolls than the other places. This is why we do the subscriber area here on the YouTube side, and on the Substack side, if you want to sign up for our Substack at joyandreid.com, that is purely subscribers, so you're never trolled. That's one of the things we do love about the joyandread.com. The Substack chat is troll-free on purpose. The Twitch chat is actually also super duper chill. It's very chill. The chillest people, they're very, very, very chill. And so the reality is, yes, a lot of people are disappointed with Hakeem, but again, it's a binary choice at this point. Who's going to be speaker? We'd rather have him than the other guy, but we also have to keep a weather eye on him and who he's listening to. He should be listening to us. He should be listening to us, not to PACs, and definitely not to Jared Kushner. Okay. Definitely not to Jared Kushner. Because what good can come of it? What are they going to agree to? Oh, wait a minute. We have $20 in the till from K3DID. Thank you very much. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. We also got a $10 popped into the till here. That's K8. Katie did. Oh, Katie did. Very cute. In California, $20. $10 from Susan Thompson, who says, like, subscribe, share across all platforms, and comment. Share Joy's powerful voice far and wide. Thank you very much. We appreciate you very much, Susan. Thank you for all your support. We love our readers so much, and our Team TJRS folks across all the various platforms. Each of you is more adorable than the last. And we're all just, the reason that we titled this show the way we did, Under His Eye, is that the his in this case is Jeffrey Epstein, because the Epstein class, the people he empowered when alive, and that he continues to empower even in death. The Epstein files seem to be as important as Project 2025 in understanding who's ruling us. And among those people, you also do have people who will act as their enforcers, and they seem to be doing it almost for nothing. They do get compensated for it, but you have people at all levels who are willing to play ball with these oligarchs. You always had that. Back during enslavement, there were people who were even black people, maybe even formerly enslaved people, maybe even currently enslaved people, who played ball with the other side because they thought they could get certain trinkets, and they would get relief from some of the pain themselves if they allowed pain to be inflicted on others. You saw some people on the continent saying, they didn't care about selling a few of their stolen, people who were prisoners of war, and selling them over to the Portuguese. They didn't care, right? Because they didn't see themselves as black. Black didn't exist. That didn't exist. There was no solidarity. So I'll sell you. And then when the Portuguese came back, and were like, that's not enough people. We're coming in to raid your village and take more. They were like, oh shit. And then the raiding started and got really intense, and then it wasn't selling anymore. Now they're just taking. Same thing with people who played ball on the plantation. You play ball with the so-called master, and you think, I'll get more time off. I'll get more downtime. I'll get, more food. I'll get a little bit more than my neighbor if I just play ball. You think that means that you're somehow in favor, and it turns out you're just chattel like them. You're slightly less miserable chattel temporarily, but eventually the so-called master comes for you as well. There just actually isn't a way to stop the pain by going along. There isn't a way to make it better for yourself by going along, but that does not stop people from going along. Unfortunately, that does not stop people from selling out their community for the trinkets that they feel that they can get from the oligarchs. That is Clarence Thomas's story. Clarence Thomas has decided that the trinkets that he can get from the oligarchs, from the rich people, are more important than solidarity with his community. He is like the old, sort of African kings that were like, that tribe over there is not us. We're Hausa, they're Fulani, they're not us, they're not our people. If we catch them, we can sell them, we don't care. There was no solidarity across that until, of course, they all had to fight wars against the Europeans and realized they were all in the same boat. And the same thing is happening along in our country with people who are technically in our community, but have decided it's more important to get the trinkets from the other side than to be down with their community, even though on any normal day, any given day, they could face the exact same pain as other members of the community. I give you Byron Donalds. I know he hates it when I say it, but Byron Donalds has decided that rising through the Republican Party is more important than group solidarity. He's never actually represented black people in Congress. His district is majority white, so he didn't really owe black people anything when he was in Congress. All four of the black Republicans represented majority white districts. So they didn't actually owe anything to black people, but because they were black, they would go on the mantle, or so they would go on television, on Fox and other right-wing media, and purport to speak for black people. So when Byron Donalds went on TV, or he wasn't on TV, he was actually videotaped because he went to Michigan, where he doesn't represent, and sat down in a bar with a big cigar with a bunch of other black Republicans, none of whom were local. I think it was like one local guy. Everyone else was from out of town, and they sat there smoking cigars, acting like they were regular members of the community, and opined that black people were better off during Jim Crow. That before the LBJ administration, before Lyndon Johnson implemented the Great Society, meaning welfare, meaning helping people financially who are starving and poor and didn't have health care, housing, before that happened, before there was assistance from the federal government, black people were better off during Jim Crow because the family was together. Even though when I questioned him, when he came on my show on Ms. Now, I asked him, well, how was the family better off if you could just drag the father off and lynch him, or lynch the wife in front of him, or lynch the son in front of him? I gave him an example of a Florida intact family where the father was forced to watch his son jump into a raging river and die because the boy had dared to send a note to a white classmate saying we should all be friends and we shouldn't be fighting. That intact family didn't do that boy or that father any good at all, or the mom. They all had to watch the lynching take place in front of them. Intact families didn't stop lynching, it didn't stop poverty, it didn't do anything. But he thinks just because it was a married man and woman and children, that means black people were better off. And that's how he justified saying that. I did remind him in that moment that his own marriage during that era, because his wife is white, would have been illegal, and he would have been lynched himself if he had even looked at her. He didn't like that either. But that's the thing. You have people like Byron, who's now, being patted on the head, figuratively, even though he was physically patted on the head by a white Republican who he should have smacked in the face or punched in the nose for patting him on the head like a child. But he didn't, because he knew you have to face some indignities in order to be in the club. You're a black guy. You have to let them do certain things that they want to do to you, and then you get power. And now he's going from potentially Congress, potentially being governor of Florida. And he's running as, I'm a black man. And black people should support me because I'm black. But I don't have to support you back. I don't have to support you getting health care. I don't even have to support you getting immunized. He went on CNN and said, I don't have to tell people to even get immunized against measles, mumps, and rubella. F that. It's Biden and immigrants' fault that people have measles, even though he knows that measles is spiked under the current regime. He doesn't care. He doesn't care that black kids can no longer properly learn black history in Florida. He's on the side of the people who took it away. And he'll continue it as governor. He's promising to be a Ron DeSantis Trump-like governor, unironically, given how much black people have suffered in a state that effectively does not offer you access to health care. Health care is the biggest issue in that state. And he's like, I don't care about that. I want to be governor. And so I'm going to say and do whatever I have to do to get the little trinkets. He's Clarence Thomas in Florida. And there are a lot of people like that. Unfortunately, there are people who are willing to sell out the community. Not that you necessarily owe every black person everything all the time, but you at least should have a sense of commonality that, but for the grace of God, you would be the person being pulled over and killed by police. In fact, in Byron Donald's case, it's literal. He was literally convicted, or at least accused of, or charged with selling drugs and passing bad checks when he was at FAMU, when he was in college. He got away because of a federal program that allowed him to start his life over, get his life back. He even got to be in the finance industry. He shouldn't have never been able to work in the finance industry, given his criminal record. But he got free of it. Now he's against that program for other people. But for him, it was fine to get it. But he thinks that all undocumented immigrants should be deported, like all the things. So that's one example of that person that's willing to be on the side of the plantation owner and not on the side of their fellow enslaved people. There are other people like that too. I would offer that former officer, Brandon Tatum is one of them as well. Brandon Tatum, he's in his 30s. He's relatively young. He's sort of set himself out as the protector of the white friends of Nolan Wells, and the one, half black, half white friend of Nolan Wells, black, right? He's technically black in America, Tristan. But he's their protector. And he's set out to do this investigation of the Nolan Wells case himself, flying down to Mississippi, doing his own investigation. But the investigation was weird, right? This is a former police officer. I think he wanted to be in the NFL, but didn't quite make it. He wound up briefly being a police officer, as Warren Ballantyne explained to us, because he's known him. He then starts becoming a podcaster, but he's a particular kind of podcaster that tends to take the side of white America over black America. He tends to take the side of conservative white Americans over anybody black. And it's just consistent. It's a thing he does. It is his shtick. I'm not going to down anybody for making money, but that's how he makes money, right? He's like the protector of white conservatives against black people. He's willing to say the things about black people that white people want to say, but they'd rather a black person say it first. He even also, just like Byron Donalds, said that black people were better off during Jim Crow. He even went further when Wajahat Ali was with him as a fellow guest on Piers Morgan's show and said black people were better off during slavery because, at least they had a job. At least they were working. And they had good, right Christian values. Well, they were being forced to pray, but, go off. Here's Officer Tatum very proudly announcing that 3 of the white friends of Nolan Wells are filing a defamation lawsuit against National Action Network president and founder, Reverend Al Sharpton.
Righty. Al Sharpton has barked himself up the wrong tree. There is a lawsuit in a pursuit of a lawsuit against him for defamation against Warren, Jax, and Morgan. And I don't want to hear none of y'all say that they just asking questions. No, they have put out false information with no evidence against these young boys. And let me tell you this, and I want everybody to be very clear about this. The days of hoodwinking, the days of bludgeoning white people, accusing them of things they didn't do, leveraging the power of the civil rights movement against innocent people, those days are over. They're over for everybody. I don't care if you black or white or indifferent. If you're going to come out and accuse people based on the color of their skin, your days are numbered. Here it goes. We have the lawsuit. We got the whole entire lawsuit. I don't know if we have it ready for people to view the entire. How many pages is it, Grant?
19 pages.
It's 19 pages long. I'm not going to read all the 19 pages. I'm going to give you a summation of them. Do we have the link for them to actually go and look at all 19 pages?
Not quite yet. We're trying to figure out how to do that appropriately.
By the end of the live stream, we should have a link for you. If you want to go look at the entire document as it is, Sarah Fields, I don't know if you follow her or not, she actually had the initial leak of this, and we have it here for you. We did a summation of it so you don't have to read all that stuff. But if you want to go read it and verify what we're saying, we'll find a way to present it, either through Sarah Fields' link or we'll do a link on our Substack so we can have it all there for you.
Joining me now to discuss is Chief Ralph Godbee. He is the retired chief of police with the Detroit Police Department. He's also an ordained minister, which is one of my favorite things about him. Chief Godbee, thanks so much for being here. Godbee Jr. Let me make sure we get your dad his flowers. Chief Ralph Godbee Jr. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Joy. It is so good to see and hear you. You are such a gift to the cause, and just your way of making things that are complicated very plain. So it's a pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you. Well, it's a good reunion because this is one of my favorite people that I used to have on the old job. But I want to talk to you about Brandon Tatum because he is also he's a former police officer for however long he served in the police department. He seems quite gleeful that there's going to be a civil suit against Reverend Al Sharpton. I will note that Reverend Al Sharpton has responded saying, bring it on, because he welcomes the discovery that would come in such a lawsuit. Absolutely. And that all he cares about is the truth. What do you make of Brandon Tatum's investigation in the Nolan Wells case?
He's dangerous on two fronts. If he is that ignorant and aloof, he's dangerous. And if he's that purposeful in being intentionally deceptive toward what the struggle is for African Americans, particularly in the field of law enforcement, he's even equally more dangerous because he's profiting off of our collective pain of over 400 plus years. If you know the history, and Joy, I know you do, of policing in the United States, slave patrols were the first organized policing entities. And to see a black man who served, I think, 9 years in policing, and not to minimize being a police officer, but he didn't rise through the ranks. He never had to make policy decisions that impacted a community, trying to turn back hundreds of years of systemic racism and the misappropriation of how law enforcement is done in black communities versus more affluent white communities. He's never had to do that at a policy level. He's never had to answer to a family where an unarmed African American male or female were killed at the hands of police. Yet we watched the Dylan Roofs of this world get taken into custody and stopped by Burger King on the way in to be locked up. So he is a very dangerous individual. And even though I hate to continue to, speak his name publicly, I just think it's so important that narrative is countered because he is he makes me ashamed of the field enforcement. I think you've heard me say I'm an officer that happens to be black. Not a black man happens to be a police officer. I'm black before I'm anything. And Edgar, Martin, Malcolm, they didn't Fannie Lou Hamer in these seats to assimilate and to hurt our own people.
And we're having a little bit of trouble with your internet connection. I'm hoping it'll come back because I definitely have more questions, because I actually think that what Brandon Tatum, Officer Tatum is his stage name, what he's doing is actually kind of instructive in a weird way, because the kid gloves with which he's treating these so-called interrogations of these young men, the way that he's presuming their rightness and innocence, even though we don't know that they did. I mean, no one knows that they did anything. And I want to make that very clear. But normally, if this were reversed and a group of young black men was being questioned by a police officer, it would be a hostile exercise. It wouldn't be an attempt to exonerate them in advance before anyone's accused them of anything. He's trying to exonerate these young people that haven't been accused of a crime. And that is the way white versus black people are treated by law enforcement, right?
Yes. And to your point, in a lot of instances, especially like you said, if the roles were reversed, unfortunately, black young men would be guilty until proven innocent, not innocent until proven guilty. And we see that with the Central Park Five. They spent years trying to overcome the damage that was done by one Donald John Trump, his full-page ad suggesting that these young men be killed or suffer the capital punishment when they were clearly exonerated, not just found not guilty, but exonerated. And I think that's a very important distinction.
And I think about the Carmelo Anthony case, right?
Yes.
In which the more we're learning about the young man who unfortunately was killed and his brother and their behavior toward other people at track meets, the violent history of the things they used to do, the bullying based in some cases, allegedly maybe on the basis of race or gender, things that they are alleged to have done, none of which came in during the trial. And the fact that the kid who's on the chess club is being portrayed in this gentleman's agreement hearing where nothing gets out to the public. He's being portrayed as a monster, but this is like the kid with a 3.7 grade point average. Reverse the roles. One cannot imagine judges and prosecutors getting together and having a gentleman's agreement to sort of wipe clean the history of the decedent, right?
Yeah.
This is, it's all the reverse.
You're absolutely true. It's absolutely true what you're saying, because if you, again, reversing the roles, we are deemed to be, we're villainized just because of the color of our skin. And you never get a chance. And thank God the internet spoke out loudly to show Carmelo's humanity, to show that he's a young man that had extremely great promise for his life. And to just kind of lock him up and throw away the key and not paint a full picture for people to see. It is just emblematic of the struggles that we still have, that a Brandon Tatum, a Stephen A. Smith, they ignore and act as if we live in a colorblind society. And it's a post-racial era, and it is not. And anybody that says that it is, they're being disingenuous at best. And I'm trying to watch my ministerial language, so I want to be careful how I say it.
Yeah. You can be, I'm a cussing Christian, by the way. So, I have to watch my language as well. But let me play for you a clip of Officer Tatum, because he goes pretty far when it comes to defending white conservatism, to the point where here he is in an interview with a young black woman defending the Proud Boys. Here he is.
Having the Proud Boys march in Washington, D.C.,
Proud Boys are not racist.
What would you say the Proud Boys are?
Well, first of all, the Proud Boys are run by a black guy. So he's Dominican. He's a black guy. And Proud Boys have supported us at a few of our events. And they're black, they're Hispanic. They've painted the Proud Boys. The Proud Boys were
white nationalists.
They're not white nationalists. They painted them as a white nationalist because they were fighting against leftist extremists Antifa. They're not white nationalists. Maybe some of them have white nationalist perspectives, but I'm telling you, the guy who's running the organization is a black guy. And I think a lot of people, they're listening to one side. I know guys in the Proud Boys. They're not racist. They supported one of our black events.
By the way, Enrique Tarrio is black, but he is Cuban, not Dominican. So I think we should let's not put him in Dominican.
But Joy, you can look at the history of black struggle, and just because it's a black person, as they say, all skin folk and kinfolk. And it is very well known, it is very well studied that the Proud Boys are a white nationalist supported type of entity. And Enrique Tarrio, he did some horrendous things and was proven guilty of those things in a court of law. And his provocateur, number 47, gave him a pardon for leading an insurrection. Brandon Tatum is extremely dangerous to our community. He's dangerous to the country from the standpoint of I can almost tolerate a white nationalist that is fighting for what they believe is their interest. But to have a black person being an apologist for the likes of Charlie Kirk, the likes of the Proud Boys, Donald Trump, it's a level of self-hate and cognitive dissonance that I just cannot grasp. There's not a dollar, and to go to a biblical indoctrination, what profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his own soul? And what will a man give in exchange for a soul? And Brandon Tatum's soul has been bought. I mean, it is no other way to say it. He's found a niche market that gives a justification to extremely conservative, right-wing, white nationalists, Christian nationalists, which is the biggest dichotomy of terms that you can have. But he gives license to them. And that's what's dangerous, because they say, oh, the black guy said there's no racism. Oh, the black guy says, and he'll be lauded in that community. And quite frankly, if they were given a chance, they would remind him who the hell he is in a very cogent moment. Because it seems as if when you move in those circles and you think you are the special Negro, at some point they remind you that you are not them.
Yeah, indeed. I will also note that Enrique Tarrio was a local and federal informant for a time. And also what he was eventually convicted of was ripping down the Black Lives Matter sign off of an historic church in Washington, D.C. So at minimum, he doesn't think that Black Lives matter.
Exactly.
Let's talk about this Nolan Wells case and what would be a normal. Do you feel that the police investigation of Nolan Wells' disappearance has been normal policing?
Oh, absolutely not. I would say 100% no. When a person of that age, 17, 18 years old, dies under questionable circumstances, there are so many missteps in the investigative process, from the preservation of evidence to getting witness statements, to the fact that his cell phone was missing and mom had to find the cell phone. There are just too many investigative gaffes to say that. As a matter of fact, I'll say it this way. Those young people gave the police the narrative, and then the police gave the narrative that was given to them. And if that is not an example of white privilege, I don't know what is. Because I dare say if that scenario was reversed, there were 4 to 5 black children and 1 white, and the 1 white is the one that doesn't come home. The 1 white is the one whose cell phone is in the possession of the young African-American kids. They lawyer up. They shut down their Facebook pages, their Instagram pages, and they go dark. If that were again, that situation was reversed, I guarantee you even the media narrative would have been much different.
Yeah.
There would have been a demand that an investigation start right away. There were just so many missed opportunities to really get a more robust understanding of what happened to Brother Wells prior to his death. And thank God for social media from this standpoint, and Black media for continuing to press this case, because I guarantee you, if it had not have caught fire on social media, there would not even be a scintilla of the effort that is now going into getting to the truth of what happened to Nolan Wells.
Yeah, if you talk about the dichotomy, I mean, I am still shaken to my core by the George Stinney case. And this is a little 12-year-old, 13-year-old boy who had two little white girls who were his playmates. They were all the same age. And when they went missing, he was put in the electric chair and killed by the state. Accused of their murder. Only later down the road did it turn out those poor young girls were killed by a grown white man, not by a little black boy. They had to put him on phone books in order to put the electric chair.
And you can't rewind and make those things right. Those are atrocities and miscarriages of justice that are just unfathomable. And you know, again, that is what makes me so angry and pissed off, literally, to hear a Brandon Tatum. And I don't even like to call him Officer Tatum. That's like a moniker. Yeah, it's a stage name. That's not, because I don't think his practical experience, if he really did the job with fidelity, would allow him to comport himself that way publicly.
Just as a former police chief, so this is the lawsuit that has been filed, or at least they're threatening to file against Reverend Al Sharpton. It goes through and it gives a very detailed narrative from the point of view of these three Nolan Wells friends that is very much like what Brandon Tatum elicited during his interviews. If this ever became a civil case or any kind of a case, is it wise for Brandon Tatum to have locked these young men in on tape to stories that is going to be very hard to get away from? If there's ever any kind of case or civil case, and again, we're not saying there will be, there may be nothing. This may go away and there's nothing but these civil cases against Reverend Sharpton and others. But if there ever was, is it wise for him to have done that?
Joy, you pointed out something that is so astute, that, you know, this is for Brandon Tatum. This has nothing to do with those young men, to be totally honest. Guilty or not, this is the Brandon Tatum show. For him to tap dance and show white America that I got your back and that I've got these young men's back. But it's not for them, it's for him. Number one. Number two, to voluntarily place yourself in legal jeopardy by locking statements in, some of which, you know, their public statements are easily refutable. So now to lock that in, that's another piece of evidence that if there is a turn in this case, civilly or criminally, you've given exhibit A, B, C, and D to the persons that would have legal jurisdiction over that. So it's not wise at all. Not wise at all.
Not wise. Well, one thing you cannot call Brandon Tatum is wise. Chief Ralph Godbee, always a pleasure. Please come back, because we're going to be staying on this case, and there's so many other cases I would love to talk with you about. Thank you, my brother. It's so good to see you. Thank you
so much. God bless.
Thank you. Of course. See, like, I even got a God bless, because he is a minister. He's a pastor. I'm a cussing Christian, so if he had a cussed, I would have been fine with it. But it does not make sense that he's doing it, and actually Chief Godbee made it make sense. He's just doing it for himself. He did it to aggrandize himself, to get content for himself. He certainly wasn't trying to help those young men who are now going to go into a civil trial with Reverend Sharpton. And Reverend Sharpton's like, good, let's do discovery. This may all spiral out of control. If this is just, and I'll say what I said before, if it's just a drowning, we don't need all this drama. None of this is necessary. This is a simple drowning and there's nothing more to it. Why are we still here on August 24th? More than a month later? Why are we still even having this conversation? And why is it getting more complicated, not less. Let's thank one more sponsor, and this is one of my absolute favorites. I got to tell y'all a story. The Joy Reid Show, by the way, is brought to you by Laundry Sauce. So we're in Martha's Vineyard, and a lady literally walks up to me, and she says, "Can you tell me about that laundry detergent that you were talking about on the show?" And I'm like, "You mean Laundry Sauce?" She was like, "Yes." She's like, "I need to get it." She's like, "Oh my God, you described it smelling so good that now I must have it." Here it is. I promise you, and I told her, listen, Jason and I don't like to talk about things that we're not actually using. If we're talking about it, it means we're using it. Now, this is the dryer sheets. Oh my God. I wish I could like wave this in the air and just let you smell how good they are. They also have the wonderful little capsules that you can use to wash your clothes. And once if you combine the washing in with the pods and these dryer sheets, shut the front door. Your stuff smells like beautiful perfumery. It smells like you're walking through like Bloomingdale's in the perfume aisle on a good day. Laundry Sauce, by the way, is not just about smelling incredible, which it does. This one is my favorite. This is, oh no, this isn't even my favorite. This is Egyptian Rose. This is my second favorite. My favorite is Italian Bergamot. I'm obsessed. But it's not just about smelling incredible. It's engineered for performance. These highly concentrated pods are packed with the cleaning power of bioenzymes that obliterate stains from anything from muddy hikes or backyard barbecues. You get that inevitable coffee spilled on your clothes. Summer's the perfect time to feel your best, and Laundry Sauce is here to help make your favorite pieces look and feel brand new. For a limited time only, our listeners can get 20% off. So listen, lady, who I ran into in Martha's Vineyard, you can get 20% off. And we told you about this. Your entire order when you use the code JOY at look at that. Jason has gifted me with more. But Jason, can you give me the other one? Can you give me the other one? Not the pads, but the actual pods. I have to show the pods. I think they're so pretty. This is my favorite. It smells so good. That's okay. I'll take the other pods. I just like the way they look. And they look like jewels. Let me show them again. Hold on. I have to show you the jewels. Run the jewels. There they are. You see that? Aren't they gorgeous? Oh my gosh, it's like a jewel box. These are gorgeous. This one smells good too. This one is Indonesian patchouli. So if you use the code JOY at laundrysauce.com, you're going to get 20% off your order with the promo code JOY. Now, after your purchase, they're going to ask, where'd you hear about them? Please support our show. Tell them we sent you. It's time to make your laundry day the best day of the week. And so to the lady who I ran into in Martha's Vineyard, this is it. Laundry Sauce. They all smell good. Each one better than the last. Run the jewels. Fabulous. All right. We like to end the show sometimes with a moment of joy. But this time we're going to do more than a moment because there is a joyful noise being made in the American South. And I think it's very important that as we go into this winter of discontent ahead of the election, that we keep our joy. And particularly this year, the South has something to say. The South is the center of our attention for a very good reason, because a lot of the action and the opportunity for Democrats to take back power is in the South if they choose to exercise it and to lean into it and to embrace people like Angie Nixon and embrace people like Scott Collum in Mississippi and people like Charles Booker in Kentucky. There's opportunities there. And Chris Jones in Arkansas. Like, you have to look south, Democrats, but it's not just the politics. Put aside the politics for a moment. You also have women and families who are just in the survival mode of trying to make it through the economic winter that we're facing right now and that families are facing, and also the winter of joy, the winter of possibility, the winter of happiness in this country. And so there is an incredible nonprofit. It's called Southern Black Girls. And they are leading the fight. They are leading the push to resourcing and advocating for Black women and families across the South. I have a little pictorial of it if you can show it. On August 21st, their 9-city tour brought hundreds of Black women and girls and all Virginia HBCUs to the Virginia State Capitol to discuss voter protection and key issues affecting Black women ahead of the midterm elections. Look at those beautiful colors. And joining me now, Executive Director of Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium, Chanceé Lundy, and our dear friend and sister, LaTosha Brown, visionary founder and co-anchor of Southern Black Girls and Women's Consortium, which funds and uplifts Black girls and women across 13 Southern states. I have been to the Southern Black Girls Consortia, and they are fun. Thank you both for being here, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, we like to say, hey, girl, hey.
Hey, girl, hey. I know. Hey, girl, hey. And I have a T-shirt from the last time that I was at Southern Black Girls. And I got to get a new one. I'm gonna start with you, Chanceé, because I don't get to talk to you as often. My favorite thing that Tasha said to me when I was at Southern Black Girls last time is she said, "You a Southern Black girl," and I'm like, I'm actually from Brooklyn and grew up in Denver, but I will take it. I lived in Florida. I'm adding myself as a Southern Black girl. Tell me what Southern Black Girls was up to in the great state of Virginia.
So in the great state of Virginia, we were on our Joy and Justice tour. It was our sixth stop along this tour. We've been on a 9-city, 8-state tour, spreading joy, mobilizing young women, providing resources, having them participate in activations to build their confidence. And so in Virginia in particular, we were actually invited to the state capitol. Virginia is really doing some incredible things. There are Black women in leadership in the governor's cabinet, and they invited us to the state capitol of Virginia, to the Commonwealth of Virginia, and they declared it Southern Black Girls Day on August 21st. So we had an opportunity to meet with some elected officials, but also some appointed officials in the governor's cabinet. We were hosted by the Secretary of the Commonwealth, Candy Moondon King, Tracy Deja-Zor, Dr. Seisha Joy Moon, all Black women who are doing incredible things. And the young women, not only were they welcomed by people like Senator Louise Lucas in Virginia, but they also got to participate in a legislative session. So at this age, that's kind of ingraining in them the politics and letting them know that there are things that you should be active and concerned about now. But then they participated in the fun, in the joy. And so Southern Black Girls, that's all what we're about providing resources, about bringing us together, because we believe when you bring people together, you win.
Yeah, absolutely. And LaTosha, we were just in Martha's Vineyard together, rescreening the amazing documentary about Black Voters Matter Fund. And that was a conversation about the work that has to get done, right, in order to survive this midterm election and come out the other side with some power, with some vision. But and I love what Southern Black Girls does, because you're also here emphasizing the joy. Why is joy critical, Tasha, to the fight?
You know, one, joy is what sustains us. In this moment, we're under attack. We see it, we feel it. People are feeling the economic crush. We're feeling the uncertainty. We're seeing all of the political rollbacks of democracy, all of those things. And so part of what, my faith tradition teaches me is that part of my responsibility is to bring the good news, that the bottom line, that every time there's ever been an attack in our communities, we've really gone deeper in terms of our humanity. And what we will do is we will organize and we will create joy in spite of. Chanceé always talks about what her grandmother and my grandmother used to say all the time about the joy. The world doesn't give us joy, and it can't take it away from us. And so no matter what they're doing out there, we've got to actually generate joy, is because that's what's going to sustain us. And then the other point I want to make is that what's happening right now, oftentimes we think, we're worried about what's going on politically and economically as if it doesn't impact our children, as if it's not, as if they're not seeing what's happening now. If we're feeling a sense of anxiety, they are too. When we're telling them, no, we're not going to be able to, they are too. And so it really is a moment for us to really feed into, how do we organize ourselves? How do we lean into the sisterhood? And how do we build power by being connected, helping people, reminding our girls and our children they are not alone, and we are going to protect them, and also creating some joy and fun and laughter in the process, and some work that we've got to upskill in this moment. Even our young people who are not able to vote, we've got a program called Vote For Me Until I Can, that we want young people to see themselves as ambassadors of building kind of power right now. And in that space, not only are we giving resources, but we're connecting to communities, because I think it's really important. The thing that is going to sustain us in this moment is us, that we're going to have to really be able to sustain ourselves. So that's why we're lifting up joy, because at the end of the day, that's where we're going to have to pull our strength from, because the show ain't going to be this United States government.
No, it's not. And Chanceé, I'm thinking about Memphis and, of course, Gary, Indiana, but Memphis is a Southern Black Girls territory. And, those Southern Black girls are probably really suffering right now. No power, no resources. And this is a state, Tennessee, that deliberately underfunds them. How do you get joy in that moment?
You know, what I'll say, I think that what LaTosha said is true. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it, and the world can't take it away. Our joy isn't necessarily dependent on our circumstance, because I don't confuse joy and happiness. And I think that we're all going to have some sad times, but I think it's up to us as a community to come together and make sure that where we see our brothers and sisters hurting in Gary, Indiana, whether it's in Memphis, Tennessee, that we're standing together, that we're providing resources, that we're mobilizing, because what we know is that we can't be dependent on the benevolence of the federal government or anyone else to save us, that it's up to us to save us. And I think that where I get joy at is when I see us helping each other, when I see us standing in a gap for each other, when I see us, whether it's sending money, whether it's putting boots on the ground, or or providing resources. That's where I get my joy from.
That's right.
And LaTosha, I'm today just realized sitting right here that we are 21 years almost to the day after Hurricane Katrina. Hurricane Katrina was August 23 through 30 of 2005, and it is August 24 of 2020. It's kind of eerie when you think about these man-made / natural disasters happening, in such a similar timeline. And I wonder, how do we even think about it? Because now we're having to think about activism and also just basic care. People are literally in the dark with no food and water.
Yes, we have got to understand that we've got to shift from seeing ourselves as just citizens of this nation to start seeing ourselves as the architects and the founders of what's next. And the truth of the matter is that Black women have always been on the forefront of shaping democracy and opening up this space for folks. And Black women just don't fall out of trees. Black women, at some point in our development, in our life, we were girls. And so we also see our work as a pipeline, a leadership pipeline, that we are literally building and placing seeds of hope into girls to let them know that they're generative. One of the things that we kicked off just today is that today we actually have offered our Joy, Black Girl Joy Grant Challenges, that Black girls can actually create a project. We have many grants that we can, it's a competitive process, but many grants that we will fund and seed. The part of the reason why we're doing that is because we need our girls to understand that they will generate the solutions, that they're not the problem, and we're not going to wait for anybody else to solve our problems, but fundamentally that we can actually generate solutions, not some point in the future, but even now. And so for us, like in this moment, as people are going through, we have to understand that the best and the highest technology that we can ever invest in, the highest technology that has ever been created, is human life or human beings. And we invest in everything else but human beings. We are invested in our highest technology. Our highest technology is our beingness, is that our girls. And so we're using this opportunity to keep building that pipeline of Black girls who will be Black women, because ultimately we want to shape the kind of world that we desire we deserve.
I love this. It's so hopeful. Chanceé, it's so hopeful. Please, if people want to get involved, I'm sure there's a lot of enthusiasm right now among people who are like, I want to help. How can people be a part of what y'all are doing?
One, you can follow us at Southern Black Girls on all social media platforms. You can go to our website. But what I would say is that you can give. We are an organization that gives. We have resourced over 250 organizations across the South, giving out over $12 million in the last few years to organizations who are anchoring our community. And if you don't give to us, find an organization led by a Black woman. They are underfunded in the South. We are severely underfunded in the South, and we're anchoring the work in our communities. We're holding up, we're filling in the gaps and all the voids. I find an organization and invest in them. We are mobilizing our communities. We're the ones who are providing shelter, food, after school programs, but we're not necessarily getting the funding. So if you don't want to give to Southern Black Girls and support this work, we're supporting other organizations. Give directly to some organizations in your community that you know are doing the good work. So many people are pulling things out of their pocketbook, and where we're facing a crisis that a lot of us are becoming unemployed, we don't have it anymore. And so we want to make sure that our organizations can continue to do the work and continue to do the good work in our communities, especially in this time.
Yeah, well, I'll give some other names of some organizations. Equity Alliance and Black Voters Matter Memphis, which you will know very well, Tasha, is working to try to help the people in Memphis. If y'all know of folks in Gary, Indiana that are also helping folks there, people are really, really hurting. I mean, people literally have been without power in Gary since the 11th of August, which is a shame and a half in a rich country where they passed $1.7 trillion in infrastructure spending. Tasha, I'm going to give you the last word on this because the other part of Southern Black Girls is Southern. Right. And the South, as we keep saying repeatedly, has something to say. And for those who think, well, you know, the South it can't change. The South is just right wing, and people can never get any better. Things won't get better. What do you say back to them?
I would say the South doesn't just have something to say. The South has something to show. The truth of the matter is, if you are a Black person in this country and you own a business, it is because work that was done in the South in the civil rights movement. If you're a Black person in this country and you go to a PWI, it is because there were Black folk in this country in the South that had the courage, had the foresight, and had the ability, and were tapped in enough to do that. That we've created a space, not just for Black folks who are in this country, we've actually created a space for the entire world. And ultimately, if you live under Canada right now, welcome to the South. You live in the South. So I say that ultimately in this moment, it is important, particularly for Black women listening to this, we got to tap in. We have to really shift and understand that we're going to have to take care of our communities. We're going to have to take care of our children. And we can't get distracted by all these things that are doing whatever little that we have, or we got to redirect our resources. We're going to have to make different spending choices. Instead of going to these companies and spending money with them on folks who don't care anything about our well-being, yes, you're going to have to give to a mutual aid group that is doing the work right now. We're going to have to really get in a space to seeing ourselves as governing ourselves while we hold these folks accountable, but we ain't going to put our children's lives on the line or like depending on other folks and the benevolence of other people. So I just ask people just to tap in this moment. Tap in, y'all. Tap in.
Amen. Amen. LaTosha Brown and Chanceé Lundy, thank y'all very much. Southern Black Girls, we're going to make sure we put the link down below so everybody can get involved. And thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate y'all bringing the joy. And I want one of them pictures. I want one of these.
Encourage girls to apply. Go to our website.
Yes.
Please encourage girls to apply for the Joy grants that they can come up with a project to generate joy for themselves and 10 other people. Please go to our website, southernblackgirls.org.
Southern Black Girls, there we go. We put it on the screen. Southern Black, y'all take a picture of the screen, southernblackgirls.org. Apply for a grant. You never know. Your dream project could get funded. That's real talk. Look, y'all know some folks that are putting a grant out there. Make sure that you apply. Thank you both, ladies.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Those are two of the best sisters in the world who are doing such good and honorable work. So yeah, if you have a great idea for a project that could help Black women and girls, and don't keep the idea to yourself. Go ahead and apply. You never know. You might actually get the grant. This is one of those situations where it's very focused on something that's probably right in your spirit. So go ahead and try. Our moment of joy, moving to our moment of joy. This is a good one. Our moment of joy is a steal from Karen Atia's Instagram. Look at it. Look at this Instagram. Now, I'm not allowed to, we can't play the music. Jason and I can't play the music. We know that YouTube doesn't like it. But I can tell you that the song under this post is, all I do is win, 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 no matter what. Because listen, let me read from the Associated Press. An arbitrator has ordered the Washington Post to reinstate a Black opinion writer fired over social media posts about violent white men following last year's killing of Charlie Kirk. The ruling Thursday said the newspaper did not have sufficient cause to terminate Karen Atia, who at the time was the last Black full-time member of the Post's opinion desk. The arbitrator, Sarah Miller Espinosa, also ordered the Post to award Karen Atia full back pay and her lost benefits. Kirk, who rose from a teenage conservative campus activist to become a top podcaster and ally of President Donald Trump, was shot and killed September 10th during a public appearance at Utah Valley University. He was 31. Kirk launched Turning Point USA. Well, he co-launched it in 2012 and made provocative statements about race, gender, and politics. He was critical of the Black Lives Matter movement on college campuses and called George Floyd, the Black man whose 2020 murder at the hands of Minneapolis police sparked protests, called him a scumbag. His death elicited a torrent of comments about him, both pro and con, and some who spoke out against him in the days after the killing faced sanctions or dismissal from their jobs. Is the Associated Press still reading that? After Kirk's killing, Karen Atia, the founding global opinion editor at the Post and the newspaper's only Black female opinion writer, made several posts to her Blue Sky account. One post read, refusing to tear my clothes and smear ashes on my face in performative mourning for a white man that espoused violence is not the same as violence. If anything, the rush to coddle violent white men is self-protective, that we know they are not used to feeling vulnerable and mortal and will react violently out of fear, and we will all suffer. That's what her post read. Atia also was emailed a termination letter on September 11th, accusing her of gross misconduct. Here's what the Post said to her. Your public comments on social media regarding the death of Charlie Kirk violate the Post's social media policies, harm the integrity of our organization, and potentially endanger the physical safety of our staff. I don't know how that could be. But Espinosa found that the newspaper in a June 4 hearing failed to establish that Atia had engaged in gross misconduct, and that the Post did not have good and sufficient cause to terminate her employment, which violated the collective bargaining agreement with the newspaper's union. After wrongfully firing me last year, said Karen, an independent arbitrator has ordered the Washington Post to reinstate me immediately with back pay. It's been a year-long fight, she said, but this is a victory for journalists everywhere. More to come soon. And that is our moment of joy. Take that, Washington Post and Jeff Bezos, you bastards. Give her money. That's our moment of joy, because Karen Atia deserved to get her job back and the back pay. Pay her all her money. Wire it to her without taking taxes out so she can spend it all. You bastards. I hope they take the money personally out of Jeff Bezos' account. Is Nala in here? Nala wants to say hi. Hi, Nala. Nala agrees. Okay, y'all wanted to see Nala. There she is. Say hi, Nala. She don't like to be busy. She doesn't like to be photographed. Come here, Nala. You don't like being photographed, right? Say, I don't like it. All right, so my last thing I'm going to do, as Nala kind of sort of sits in my lap, look at the camera. You don't want to? Don't lick me in my face. I don't do that. I don't play those games. All right, so let me, yes, this is Nala. She'll only give you a profile. She don't like being photographed. She's like a super celebrity that's like, don't photograph me. Sorry, don't photograph me. No, don't photograph. You can like get me from the side. No, she's like Mariah Carey when she first came out. She only would go from the side. She's very heavy. She's very big. Okay, go back down. I'm sorry, Nene. It's okay. Yeah, you're a good girl. You're taking all my things down. You're making it all fall. Okay, that's fine. That's Nala. Yes, run her money. Bitch better have my money. Pay me what you owe me. That's what she should have put on the slide. That she put all I do is win, but I could have took that. Better have my money. Pay me what you owe me. Like blah, blah, blah. Very happy for Karen. Okay, so really quick, let me play this clip because this is coming up on Wednesday.
Now, doesn't this have to do specifically with your criticism of radical people on the left? And you did mention a couple of African-American women at times. Jasmine Crockett, who says nutty things. Joy Reid, who says, in my view, nutty things. Is that what this is about?
I think it is. I don't think there's any question about it, and that's why I spoke out against it, because I think it's utterly ridiculous. I was raised by 5 black women. My mother, God rest her soul, and my 4 older sisters. I have 2 daughters. I have 10 nieces. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. I find it highly offensive that they would label me in this way. Give me a thumbs down award specifically for disparaging black women. I want everybody out there to know there's no such thing. That did not happen. That is a flat out lie. And that never happened. Whether it was Jasmine Crockett, whether it was Kamala Harris, whether it was Michelle Obama, I pointed to something that they said that I may have disagreed with. That is all. That is all that I have done. And to enjoy
you said about Michelle Obama,
as well.
She could win. That's what I remember you saying about
yeah,
her.
But what? No. Yeah, but remember what happened was that I said that I did not appreciate her saying that a vote for Donald Trump was a vote against women, because I said there are a plethora of reasons why people go to a poll. Some people might prioritize the economy, immigration, safety in the streets of America, national security, etc. There are a plethora of reasons why somebody would choose to vote, to sit up there and to say
I think we got
to
it.
African
specifically with
we got it. We got it. Yeah. So
Joy, I really don't like the way how, this thing played out. I got the thumbs down, and Joy, I'm very mad at you, Joy. Joy, Joy, you got me talking to Sean Hannity on the radio. And, oh, God, I'm mad, Joy.
You said, my mama's black, my editor's black, my gums are black. Everything's black. So I will say this. First of all, he wasn't responding to anything I said. But me specifically, he wasn't. He out of the blue attacked me. I didn't say anything to him. I don't even know the man. I've met him one time at NBJ actually. So he wasn't responding to something I said. When it came to Jasmine Crockett, he wasn't responding to anything that she said about him, like to him, or even was addressing him. He just didn't like the way she talked. with Jamel Hill and Carrie Champion, he essentially was saying, I made you. How dare you criticize me? Like you got the thumbs down for a real reason, Stephen A. I mean, the best response would have just been to say, I own this. Let me do better. But don't worry. My preview was not that we're having him on our show tomorrow.
You know why? You know why? Because I'm mad. Can't have me on your show. No. I won't give you that, Joy. You see, I didn't say your name. I said his name because he mentioned it. But I will not challenge you, Joy, because I'm scared just a little. But you know, Joy, I got a black mama, Joy, and I'm still upset about it, Joy. You said I don't love black women. How dare you? My dog is black. Everything about me is black, Joy.
That's it. My mama's black, my editor's black, my CEO's black, my gums are black. Everything's black, I tell you. But no, that's not who we're having on the show. Yeah, the other thing, people are enjoying Jason's Stephen A. Smith impersonation. He's got
I ain't coming on your damn show. Screw your show.
That and Nosferatu. We have to decide which do you prefer, Jason as Nosferatu or this Jason as Stephen A. Smith. We're not having him on. But one of the other things that he said, I didn't want to keep playing it because it was enough already, that he said, weird to go to Sean Hannity as your first stop when you're defending yourself against the National Association of Black Journalists. Going to the right-wing Fox News host, very weird, Fox News and scare quotes. Very odd choice, but you make your own choices. He also said in that interview, or either that one or the one with Chris Cuomo, also a weird choice, that the leaders of NABJ, particularly Erin Haynes, who's the president of NABJ, that he reached out to her and said that he wanted to have a one-on-one conversation with her rather than do this public rebuke, and that he was chiding Erin for not doing a behind-the-scenes one-on-one conversation rather than issue the rebuke publicly. Well, we have a guest coming on the show on Wednesday who has a very different take about that. Because this guest is going to say that, or says that Stephen's being pretty hypocritical about that. So you're going to want to tune in on Wednesday to hear.
I wasn't being hypocritical. I was not being hypocritical. I got sideswiped, gave me the thumbs down. I'm a good black man. Good. I'm so upset about it, Troy.
There you go. And you will hear this other person. I'm not going to tell you who it is. It's going to be interesting. Very, very interesting. Please also, if you have not subscribed to Contraband Camp, we're doing this in tandem with Contraband Camp. So if you have not signed up for contrabandcamp.com, you want to sign up for that, and the stories are going to go together. So that's all I'm going to tell you. That is your tease for Wednesday. That's what's happening on Wednesday. Last thing I'm going to do here is I just got this other piece of breaking news that the U.S. is preparing to rescind up to 200,000 business and tourism visas in the largest mass visa revocation ever, according to the Associated Press. I'm also being asked by Adrian, is Nala SAG after she needs her money? If she's probably going to apply for her union card, so we're going to wait for that to come in the mail, and then Nala needs to get her SAG after card. Clearly, because she's been on the show. She's been on the show more than once, so she's SAG after now.
Yeah, I love her. I love her because she's yellow.
She's not black, right?
She ain't black. She yellow. I like her.
Unlike
she's
your
a
lawyer.
good dog. She's a good dog.
And your mother. Yeah,
good one, Joy. Good one.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen A. Smith. That's it for the show. Congratulations to Karen Atiyah. Thank you all for having us back. Thank you again to Waj and the team for doing such a great job last week. We truly, truly, truly missed you guys. We're happy to be back, and we'll see you on the Joy Reid Show. See you same bat time, same bat channel. Much love to our Team TJR spam. Love y'all. Peace. Bye.
Bye.
Getting back to the basics, grassroots level. Let me dig a little deeper with the shovel. Plenty can't tell the forest from the trees, and I'm hard to detect, like a black hole in the dark. Injustice anywhere, it's a threat to justice everywhere. Let me make this clear, I got a bone to pick, and I'll never fear the threat of poverty. They don't want to talk about it, they rather party, so I'm a real talk about it, for sure.